You're listening to the most captivating podcast in iTunes. That's right, the Elite Man Podcast, where we turn average men into elite men every day. We interview the very best experts from the lifestyle, health, fitness, social, and even entrepreneurial worlds. And with their help, we give you some of the best advice on the planet. Subscribe now if you haven't already and enjoy the show. And oh yeah, if you really enjoy it, leave us a review. On today's episode number 250, entitled, How to Overcome the Toughest Adversity Imaginable and Bounce Back Better Than Ever, I chat with Rob Jones. Rob Jones is a Marine Corps veteran, U.S. Paralympic Medalist, ultra-endurance athlete who's completed 31 marathons in 31 days and rode across country on a bicycle in the dead of winter, and a congressional candidate in the 10th District of Virginia. In today's episode, Rob talks about the fateful day in Afghanistan where he got hit with an explosive and ultimately lost both his legs. He talks about the crazy real-time experience, his recovery thereafter, and his incredible resolve and determination throughout. Rob also shares his mindset and optimism after recovery and what it was like pushing himself physically and mentally to where only the most elite athletes in the world can go. And he also talks about why he lets nothing hold him back. If you're wondering how to bounce back from life's greatest setbacks and challenges, check this episode out now. You are going to love it. If you want to get more content, more information, and extra bonuses I don't post anywhere else, make sure you follow me on Instagram right now. It's at Justin Stenstrom. That's JustinStrom. I'm posting pretty much every day throughout the week, most days out of the week for sure, but almost every day, and it's all kinds of information regarding health, wealth, business, life, dating, relationships, confidence, and so much more. I'm telling you, you're going to love seeing some of the stories I post about and the feed posts I post all the time. It's pretty interesting. It's pretty fun. I'm loving Instagram right now, so make sure you follow me, Instagram.com/Justin Stenstrom, or just jump on your phone right now, pull up the Instagram app, and it's at Justin Stenstrom. If you are not on the Elite Man newsletter yet, make sure you get on it right now. Go to EliteManMagazine.com/newsletter and sign yourself up today. Get all of our bonus podcast information, sneak peeks into upcoming shows, behind the scenes content, special offers, and exclusive Elite Man updates found absolutely nowhere else. You are basically getting a sneak peek into all Elite Man content, activity, and updates and news. You will be the first person notified when anything Elite Man related happens. I'm telling you, it's basically like getting a sneak peek into Elite Man headquarters. Go to EliteManMagazine.com/newsletter, sign yourself up, and become a true member of the Elite Man community. I look forward to speaking to you soon. EliteManMagazine.com/newsletter. All right, guys, we're live. It's Justin Stenstrom from EliteManMagazine.com, and my guest today is Rob Jones from RobJonesJourney.com and RobJonesForCongress.com. Rob, thanks so much for coming on the show, man.
Hey, happy to be here. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on, and I know you have a very interesting story. There's so many different things you've done in your life. So, I mean, I'm going through your bio here, and there's like 20 different things you're currently doing or have done just in the past few years. It's very interesting. And why don't we pick it up from your time in the Marine Corps? We'll start there and then just kind of take it from that point forward.
Yeah, sure. I joined the Marine Corps in 2006 during my junior year at Virginia Tech. It was after I read the book Brotherhood of Heroes about the Battle of Peleliu. And my original plan was to join the reserves after my junior year, finish my last year at Virginia Tech, and then apply to go to OCS in the Marine Corps. And I did that. I finished my last year, finished at Virginia Tech, but before I got a chance to go to OCS or apply even, my reserve unit was sending a volunteer platoon to Iraq, so I volunteered for that deployment. And in Iraq, my job was combat engineer, and so what we were doing primarily there was building Iraqi police stations and also going out and finding buried weapons caches. And we kind of work as, we'd get an intelligence tip from a local Iraqi, and they'd say, over there's a buried weapons cache. So we'd patrol out there, and the infantry guys would set up security for me and another engineer, and we would just sweep the area with our metal detectors until we either found whatever was there or we were satisfied that there wasn't anything there after all. And so we did that for 7 months and came back, and before I knew it, or pretty much by the time we got back, my company was sending another platoon, a volunteer platoon, to Afghanistan. where I volunteered again, and so that's kind of where things get interesting.
Yeah. So, what ended up happening that one fateful day? Can you just kind of walk us through that particular day and the events surrounding it?
Yeah, sure. So, like I said, I was a combat engineer, and so part of that role is historically has been um, in placing and clearing minefields. And so we get training with metal mine detectors and metal detectors for that role. And so when the Taliban and Al Qaeda started using IEDs, it kind of naturally fell to us to be the ones that go out and do these kind of route clearance missions where we go through areas and we find safe routes through what's essentially minefields. And so if you envision that you wanted to cross a bridge, there's a good likelihood that the Taliban will have put landmines or IEDs before and after that bridge because they know that it's likely that you're going to go there. So we would go out in front with a metal detector and find a safe route across that bridge. And then once we got to the other side, everybody else would kind of come and follow a little trail of breadcrumbs that we had left behind for them. And so we spent 4 months doing operations in Afghanistan, and that was my role. I would just get sent out with infantry platoons and squads. And so on July 22nd of 2010, I was in that role. We discovered what was a minefield, was essentially a mini minefield, and I set out to find us a safe route across it. And my luck ran out, and I lost that game of cat and mouse, and I stepped on an IED instead of finding it with my metal detector.
Wow. What was it like a mistake on your part? Was it just bad luck? Was it like so many mines in there that anybody would have made the same mistake, or just kind of had that unfortunate luck befall them? Do you look back on that time, on that particular day and incident, as something that you could have done better, or you wish that you did better?
Potentially. I mean, I can't say I really wish I had done anything better because I enjoy my life right now as it is, and I don't know what it would be like if things hadn't happened like they did.
Yeah.
But in terms of going back and assessing how I performed that day, it's not an easy thing to do, even in the best of circumstances. You're trying to find a single strand of copper wire in the ground with a metal detector, and it's not easy.
Yeah.
Uh,
How thin is that like strand of wire?
a lot of the times it would just be if you took a wire and you unraveled a single strand, so it's extremely thin.
Wow.
It's barely any metal. All it has to do is just carry a current, and so yeah, it's very thin. So it's not an easy task. Um, if I could do anything differently from a technical standpoint, I may have just suggested that we just go around the entire area. I don't know that it was actually imperative that we went through that exact spot.
Mhm.
So I might have just said, maybe we should just go around and avoid this area entirely. Um, Maybe I could have adjusted the sensitivity of my metal detector a little bit more and raise it up a little bit, so maybe it would have picked up the wire a little bit better. But then at the same time, if your metal detector is too sensitive, then you're going to be picking up, everything in the ground, and so you might not even you have so many, false positives that you never get anywhere. So it's really difficult to do, even in the best circumstances. So I don't know, whether I did I did anything wrong. I
Yeah.
could have had everything perfectly, and this just didn't work out.
Hindsight's always 20/20 anyways. You look back and you could have did this, you could have did that, but you know,
Yeah.
that's life. So what actually happens? Do you remember the bomb the explosive going off? Do you remember hearing anything? Do you remember the guys around you saying anything? Like what's the experience like in that moment?
Yeah, I remember just about everything. I mean, one second I was swinging my metal detector back and forth in front of me. The next second I was kind of transported through time, 20 seconds, and I was on my back. And it's a lot like you see in war movies where the guy that's been wounded is screaming his head off, and there's blood everywhere, and the other guys are putting tourniquets on him, and they're telling him he's going to be okay, and they load him up onto a stretcher and they take him to a helicopter, and that's the exact same way that it went for me. Um, And yeah, I got the morphine, and so that kind of calmed me down a little bit. But yeah, it all went down in a pretty quick little span of time there. I'd say between the moment I was hit to when I went unconscious again was probably 10, 15 minutes.
Wow. So what are your thoughts initially like during this? I'm thinking too, like I've seen so many war movies and I know exactly what you're describing. At least I think I know what you're describing. Like the loud sound and you kind of lose your hearing and there's yelling
Yep.
around you and
Uh-huh.
like that weird feeling like you just kind of like almost left your body. Like it's just like a totally different experience than what you're used to and it lasts seconds or minutes for some people. Is
hmm
that what like is that what's going on? It sounds like it is. And then what are your actual thoughts while it's going on? Are you just completely scared? Are you are you not like there, not really feeling things, or is it just chaos?
Yeah, for the first, so it kind of went from not really hearing anything because I was focusing on the metal detector and everything, to yeah, that ringing in the ears sound that you hear commonly,
Yep.
and then hearing screams and hearing my fellow Marines saying things to me like you're gonna be okay, we're coming for you. Um, I had tunnel vision for the first couple minutes. I could really only see like kind of a blurry tunnel that was kind of going up to the sky because I was laying on my back. Um, couldn't really. Most of my limbs were pretty numb. Like my body felt pretty numb. My legs kind of felt like they had fallen asleep, except kind of in a painful way. You know how when you fall asleep on your arm
Yeah.
and you kind of wake up and it hurts, like kind of like that feeling, except magnified by about a good 50 to 100 times. So really
Yeah.
powerful
Wow.
feeling like that. I just kind of smell and taste dust, and when explosions happen, they have a really distinct stench, chemical stench they produce, and so I could smell all that stuff, and so I kind of immediately knew what had happened. I just didn't know the extent of the damage to my legs. I checked my hands to make sure they were okay, and they seemed fine. That calmed me down a little bit. Um, but yeah, I didn't know. I kind of thought about what the future was going to be like. I didn't know what it was going to be like to be an amputee. So I kind of assumed I was just going to be in a wheelchair forever, and I was going to be helpless, and my parents were going to have to take care of me like I was a baby. And so I was asking guys just to go ahead and finish me off, and of course they didn't. So that's kind of the feelings and the events, what kind of was going through my head.
Yeah. What at what point were you asking guys to finish you off? Like in that moment, or was it later on, like when you were kind of feeling it, like depressed and stuff like that?
No, just in the moment, once I was airlifted off the battle, or once they put me unconscious when they took me to the helicopter, that's the last time I ever thought about anything like that, and it was just kind of I was high on morphine. I was not sure what the future was going to be like, and just kind of rambling more than anything.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, obviously, I'm glad they didn't acquiesce to
Yeah.
my request. And yeah, after that, I've never had that kind of thought ever.
Yeah, that is incredible, man. So, what's the recovery process like afterwards? You said after that morphine fused trip of riding out of there, that's the last time you thought of killing yourself or having somebody kill you.
Yeah.
What was it like recovering after that point, and how long did it take? And like, what's your mindset like during that time?
Yeah, recovering was in a way it was kind of fun because it was like a puzzle I had to figure out. Um, and so it starts with the most immediate thing that needs to happen is you need to heal. Your body needs to heal. So you go in for surgeries. It took me about 5 days to get to Bethesda Naval Hospital, and I just went in for surgeries every other day, and they would just kind of clear away the dead tissue and the tissue that was no longer viable, and revise my amputations, and I mean it was just a long time. It was about a month long of just waiting for my skin to heal and my body to heal, and so I started in the ICU with tubes coming out of every part of my body, and just kind of slowly as I recovered, they started taking away things like the catheter or the feeding tube, the oxygen tube in your nose, the IVs. I had an epidural for a while, so they just kind of slowly started taking that away. And meanwhile, over the course of that time, as I get a little bit more mobile, I'm starting to do a little bit of physical therapy, like transferring to my wheelchair and lifting my stumps up and down and just kind of moving around in the bed, trying to get mobile. Eating 3 meals a day where they gave me just all the calories I could possibly eat. Two protein milkshakes with every meal, and yeah, I mean, and that's kind of it. And then just taking, my family was there visiting with me, and they would come every day, and I would spend time with them, and then my friends would come in and see me, and just kind of spent the first month in the hospital bed, just waiting to heal until finally, the last thing they needed to do was attach a skin graft to the inside of my right thigh, and they did that. Waited for it to be kind of like they felt that it was gonna take and be fine, and then they transferred me over to Walter Reed to start the prosthetic process.
Wow. So you said about a month or so of being in that first hospital, then after that they transfer you to Walter Reed?
Yeah, exactly. So it took me about a month to heal up, and even after I got to Walter Reed, I still had to wait a couple weeks for my stitches to come out.
Okay. And then how long's the recovery process at Walter Reed and like thereafter?
Yeah, it varies based on your injuries and how motivated you are and how lucky you are with your length of your stump. But for me, I was at Walter Reed for about a year and a half. I probably could have left after a year, but the other aspect of your recovery is paperwork that goes along with your retirement or getting back to active duty, whatever you decide. So yeah, I was ready to go after a year. But I had to wait a few more months in order to get the paperwork done.
Okay. So a year and a half, like full recovery until you're back on your, I guess, prosthetic feet, right? Like,
yeah.
How high up was it? It says it's past, or it says you lost it past both of your knees, which seems pretty bad. Is that right?
Yeah, that's you want to keep as much limb as you can. So if you can keep your ankle, you keep your ankle. If you keep your knee, you keep your knee. Yeah. And each level of that, takes another, adds more and more challenge to the injury, because you have less to balance with, and you have less power generation and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so my left leg is what's called a through knee or a knee disarticulation. And so I have my entire femur on the left. I just don't have the knee joint. And then my right leg is what's called an above knee. And so I have, most of my femur except for maybe the top 4 inches. And so, I have about as long of an above knee amputation stump that you can have. And so I'm kind of lucky in that regard, and it makes me a lot more mobile, makes it so I can do, a lot of these more physical stuff because I have a little bit more limb. And now if you have a guy that has barely any above knee stump, that's a whole lot different than what I have. And then you also have, double hip disarticulations where people have absolutely no stump. So, the more you have, the better.
How is your mindset so positive during this time? The first month, obviously, which has to be absolutely crazy, and then the year and a half or so afterwards. How are you staying positive and not thinking of, suicide or getting really down and depressed and just thinking like the world is against you and you have all this shit luck? Like, so many people, I think, would have just the worst time recovering from something like that. I mean, that's just one of the worst things you can go through, I think. How do you stay so positive during this time and not get down on yourself?
Yeah, it's not easy for anybody. I'm kind of lucky in that I have a natural knack for accepting things. I think maybe it's genetics or something like that. I don't get too emotional about most things. And so I kind of started off, on a good foot there. But I really think one of the major things that did it for me was this kind of a selfless attitude towards my family and my friends, because I realized that my family's mental state was directly related to my own when I got to when I got to Bethesda. And so I knew that in order to do what's best for them, I needed to make sure that I had a positive attitude. I didn't want them to see me struggling. And so I kind of manifested that in myself, and I had that positive attitude in the beginning. And then as to more and more time went on, I just kind of got used to it. And then from there, it was impossible to go back because on top of, having gotten used to having a positive attitude and actually having one, if I went back to a negative attitude from having a positive attitude, that would be even worse for my family. And so we kind of just fed off of each other. And so I was acting in the best interest of my family. And then eventually, once I kind of got better and better at prosthetics and new guys were coming in, new amputees were coming in after me, I needed to be acting in the best interest of those other amputees and being a positive example for them. And so I kind of always just was able to find this kind of selfless reason to stay positive and to keep pushing myself.
Yeah, it's incredible, man. There's so much to take away from what you've done and the mindset that you had during that time. I think it really is impressive. And
Thanks.
yeah, no problem. There's a lot to be learned from having, having that ability to just adapt to whatever comes your way and accepting it. Like you said, whether it's genes or maybe just your conditioning or, probably a combination of both, like growing up, like the way you were raised, I'm sure like makes you more resilient. And when, shit hits the fan or bad things happen in life, you just adapt to those circumstances and make the best of it.
Yeah, and being in the Marine Corps certainly helped. I mean, in the Marine Corps, I learned a lot about mission accomplishment before anything else. And so what was going to be the best thing to accomplish my mission in life? Well, that was to recover. And so the more energy and the more time I spent on wishing, something that had already happened hadn't happened, the less energy and time I would have to put forth towards that mission. And so I just kind of stripped away all that stuff that I didn't need, and I just did what I needed to do. Yeah. And so that's kind of, genetics plus, nurture and nature.
Yep, absolutely. So at what point do you decide you want to start doing all kinds of crazy shit like 31 marathons in 31 days and Paralympic athlete? You placed third, I believe, in the rowing competition and just doing all kinds of crazy stuff. When did you decide? Was it during that year and a half of recovery that you were like, I'm not going to let any of this slow me down. I'm just going to keep doing the things I love and maybe even push further than what I was doing before?
Yeah, I didn't sit there and plan it all out, from my hospital bed or my outpatient room that I was going to do all these things. It just kind of snowballed ultimately. But I started becoming, I'd always been interested in the life of an athlete. Ever since I got kind of interested in working out and being in good shape for being in the Marine Corps. So I thought that life was very interesting, the level of dedication it takes to be the best in the world at something. So that was always kind of attractive to me. And so I kind of immediately, actually, when I was in Bethesda, started looking for ways that I could keep training in sports that I could do. And with the possibility that I might be able to go to the Paralympics. And so I kind of looked up rowing and determined that there was a place where I could learn how to row, do this what they call adaptive rowing, close to the hospital. And then so I kind of put that idea aside for a while because I had other things I needed to do first. But when the time came, I went down for a lesson, and I enjoyed it a lot. And a lot of things kind of just fell into place. I kind of took to it naturally. I enjoyed doing it. I had the time to do it. I had a coach. My coach knew another coach that had an athlete that was a female, another double above knee amputee that wanted to go to the Paralympics too. So we met, and just so happens that we rowed well together and we got along. And she wanted to go to the Paralympics, so I made a deal. And by the time I retired, we had already decided that we were going to try and make the Paralympics in 2012. What just so happens, they were the next year. If I got injured in 2013, I don't know if I would have gone all the way to 2016. So a lot of these things kind of fell into place. And so, yeah, I mean, we decided that we were going to go down to train for the Paralympics. So we trained for 10 months, and we managed to get a bronze medal in the Paralympics in London in the trunk and arms mixed double sculls. And yeah, and that was kind of the launching point. And then I kind of got into the endurance stuff that you mentioned kind of after that. And I don't know how far you want me to go with this story. I could be talking for 3 hours.
We'll touch on a few of them. What is the actual training for the rowing look like? How often during the day are you training for? How many hours, and what does it actually entail?
Yeah, so it depends on the athlete again. I mean, if you're talking about the Olympics, I mean, most Olympians will probably train 3 times a day, 6 days a week, maybe even like 20 out of 21 days
Wow.
straight. For me and my rowing partner, we train twice a day, 6 days a week, rested on Sunday, and it would usually be about 3 to 3.5 hours total of training, usually broken down into two sessions, so one of 90 and one of 2 hours maybe. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we'd be in the gym in the afternoon, and then Monday, Wednesday, Friday in the morning, we'd row. Tuesday, Thursday, we'd row twice, and then Saturday, we'd row. And so that's kind of how the training looked, and we just did that for 10 months straight.
Is it out in the water? Like you guys have a little boat and you're going out there too in the mornings?
Yep, yep. Well, it wasn't at 2 in the morning, but
No, I mean, yeah, in the mornings
it was,
for the 2 days. Yeah, the morning.
yeah, 2 days. Yeah, yeah. So we'd go out on this lake in near Orlando, Florida, and yeah, I was out on the water and in the gym, and that was it. And then so the racing, the competition was, I'm sure you've probably seen in the Olympics. You start on a dock, and whoever makes it to the 1,000-meter mark first wins.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I never actually have done that, but I have helped with rowing on several like little canoes and stuff.
Yeah, you should get. Well, also though it's a different, certainly a different sport from canoeing, but yeah, you should definitely, if you're interested in a sport that is incredibly difficult physically, but also requires extreme attention to detail and fine technique, it's definitely the sport for you.
Yeah. What's the hardest part about that sport?
I'd say the hardest. The hardest I mean, it's an incredibly physically demanding
Yeah, it is.
using your entire body, and it's just uh, it's a gut check for sure. But I think the hardest thing is just the technique, mastering the technique and making it as efficient as possible to put your blade in the water, not lose any energy, and then get it out of the water as effectively as you can. And that just takes hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of close attention to detail in your training, and there's no excuse for that. I mean, you can get to be pretty dang strong and pretty good with your heart and lungs, without a whole lot of technique. But being able to add that technique to it, that's very difficult.
Yeah, it seems like I'm just guessing here, but it seems like to me that it'd be one of those sports that if you do it like even a little bit wrong, and then you do it repetitively a little bit wrong for a period of time, you can easily mess up like a shoulder or a back muscle or some kind of arm. Like you can really get hurt pretty easily if you're repetitively doing that over and over again because it is so taxing on your upper body.
Yeah, and not only that, if you do it you do it in a wrong way, you're learning bad technique, and then you have to unlearn that and then learn the good technique. So
Yeah.
you want to be very careful. And unfortunately, we didn't really have the time to, learn perfect technique before we needed to start kind of training our physicality as well. So we just kind of had to do it both on the fly,
Yeah.
simultaneously.
Definitely. Yeah, and it also seems like, it's a mentally challenging sport as well because, like you said, there's a lot of technique like this. You got to pay attention to the details, the specifics of it. And it's like over and over again, like doing that same thing over and over again, specifically like 100% correct. And, it's obviously draining you physically, but then like mentally to keep having to go back to that physical thing, it seems like a grind.
Yeah, man. I mean, you get off the water and it just feels so good for about 5 minutes, and then you realize, oh yeah, I have to go do this again tomorrow. So, and I
Sure.
have to do it twice tomorrow. So it's kind of it's hard to enjoy your time off, but you really enjoy it when you can.
Yeah. I'm sure you got ripped too, like upper body wise from that, right?
Yeah, I got some pretty good musculature. But you kind of have to balance that size with, being able to breathe hard and use your body. So it's definitely, your body just adapts to whatever it needs to be. But yeah, we got in some pretty dang good shape.
This episode is brought to you by Ashford University. You can achieve your master's degree while balancing your work and home life. Start earning your master's degree today. Enroll by going to ashford.edu/eliteman. You know that a master's degree could help you get ahead in your career or start the career you've been looking for, so what's holding you back? Work, commuting, or just life in general. I know so many friends who've been trying to get their master's degree for years, but they just haven't been able to do it. Not enough time, work, the kids, too many things going on. There's so many things getting in the way from them pursuing the master's degree and actually going after the career and job that they really covet. But Ashford University's online master's degree programs allow you to learn at your own pace. You can study wherever you're the most comfortable learning. They have 6-week-long courses that allow you to take one course at a time. Being enrolled in just one class at Ashford means you are considered a full-time student. Also, the cool thing is there are no standardized tests that are required. The GRE, GMAT, and other standardized test scores are not required for you to enroll at Ashford University. And yes, they are fully accredited. Ashford University is fully accredited by the WASC Senior College and University Commission. So stop procrastinating on getting your master's degree. You can achieve your master's degree while balancing your work and home life. Start earning your master's degree today. Enroll by going to ashford.edu/eliteman. That's ashford.edu/eliteman to start your master's degree today. ashford.edu/eliteman. All right, so the marathons come afterwards. After that point, just kind of stumbled upon that as well. What made you want to start running marathons? 26 miles plus, I believe, is considered a marathon, and then 31 of these crazy things in 31 days. What's going through your head at that point?
Well, actually, the next thing was my bike ride across the country.
Oh yeah, that. Oh yeah, wow.
But I wanted to get into something, so I was on this kind of journey to figure out what my way of kind of continuing to contribute in a meaningful way to my country and to the veteran community would be. And I thought maybe I'd start by rowing and see what I could do there. And I kind of realized that rowing wasn't going to I relearned my self-confidence and my self-reliance and trust in myself that I can train for something and accomplish something big with rowing. But it wasn't going to be the activity that kind of brought the meaning of my life for my life that I was seeking. Because it was just, you go and you just win some races and you get a bunch of attention and that's about it. So I started looking for some other kind of way that I could give back and continue to serve the veteran community in my country. And so I decided that maybe this, fundraising challenges, endurance challenges would be the way that I could do that. And so the first one that I did was my bike ride across the country, starting in Maine in the winter or in October of 2013, and going to Camp Pendleton over the course of the next 6 months in 5,200 miles, and finishing April 14th of 2014.
Wow, that's where's Camp Pendleton? Where's that? California?
That's it's just north of San Diego.
Okay, wow.
So I kind of went diagonally across the country.
Well, so what did you say? It was about 6 months?
Yeah, 181 days total. I kept a little journal of kind of daily stuff that happened. I would just kind of at the end of the day write down something like, did 35 miles today. Saw this person, talked to this person, or did this really hard mountain or whatever it may be. And so there's 181 days that I wrote something in my little notebook.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Did you ever think at that time, the comparisons to like Forrest Gump?
Yeah, I've heard that on both things here. On the people ask me about that on the bike ride and the marathons. And hey, Forrest was a hard dude, and I did it for a better reason though. I didn't just feel like running. I did it for a purpose besides that. But
What are you thinking? Like, what are your thoughts during the trip across country? Is it relaxing? Is it fun? Is it enjoyable? Do you feel free just being out there riding like 30 plus miles every day, and then waking up and doing it again the next day? It seems like a pretty liberating experience.
Yeah, kind of all of those things at different points of the day. I probably experience all of those every day at different times. I would feel free and it'd feel great and relaxing, when I was coasting down a mountain, looking out on, the Utah desert, or, looking out over the mountains and the Blue Ridge or something like that. But I'd say, the vast majority of it was tough. It was a slog, and it took a lot of mental tenacity to, get on the bike again in the wintertime the next day. And yeah, but I was doing it for a good reason, and so I always remembered that reason. So, and that reason that I was doing it to raise awareness about veterans and raise money for veteran charities, that was freeing too, because it was really fulfilling for me to be on that kind of a mission that had that kind of meaning, doing something that I enjoyed. I enjoy working out, and I enjoyed doing these physical things. So yeah, depending on the minute of the day, I was feeling one of those things that you mentioned.
How were your legs during this time? Like the parts. What do you call it? Stumps? How are the parts of the stumps above the knees? Like, does it hurt when you're doing it? Does it, feel normal? Does it get challenged? Does it get taxed like the quad muscles would ordinarily get taxed if you're biking all that much anyways for anybody? Like, how does that feel?
Yeah, so if you want to have the politically correct term, it's residual limb, but I just like to say stump.
All right. If it's cool with you, I'll say it.
Yeah, stump is good.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways that they were hurting. So the skin. So the way that you wear a prosthetic is you put this thing on called a socket. It's just a mold of your leg, and it gets attached. It attaches to your leg with suction or friction or whatever. And so no matter how tight or comfortable you get that thing, it's always going to be rubbing somewhere. And so that friction builds up, and you start to have lesions, or you get buildup of fluid or blisters or that kind of thing. And so there's always that going on. And then, in addition to saddle sores and that kind of stuff. And then for me, my quads never really burned because I don't have the knee. So I wasn't really using the quad to actually propel the bike. I was using glutes. And so those would burn when I was going up hills. Now my hamstrings would burn too, because I'm pushing down into the socket, and the socket's pushing down into the prosthetic's pushing down onto the pedal. And so I think what it was for my hamstrings was kind of an isometric type of thing, where I was pushing down into them, and that was kind of contracting them in that way, because I wasn't using my hamstrings to propel the bike either, because I don't have the knee. But I think because I was pushing down with them against my socket, that kind of produced this kind of isometric contraction that made them burn really bad.
So what do you do to just fight past that pain? Are you
Yeah, you just endure it.
Yeah, putting on a new gear, like in your mind every day, to just kind of keep going past it, knowing that it's probably not going to lead to anything serious, but you do have to probably attend to it at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to endure the pain. It goes away when you get to the top of the hill or whatever it may be, and then you recover. It's just like any workout. You work out until you can't anymore, until it hurts while you're working out, and then you let your body rest, and you just don't work out so hard that your body can't recover from what it did on any one day. And so I just had to figure out what that pacing was going to be. And so my pacing was 30 miles in the beginning, and then I upped that to 35 miles for the end. And it worked out pretty good, because I was usually pretty fresh the next day.
Yeah. Did you ever take any days off, and did you ever think about like stopping your journey at any point?
Yeah, I would take days off. I mean, that's part of that pacing thing. If going back, I don't know if I needed the days off. I was definitely erring on the side of caution with my rest. Yeah. I usually would rest about every 10 days, or if I did a really big day, like riding up Monarch Pass, which is like 9 miles, 9 miles is 6% grade. I would take a day off after like a big day. I always thought about stopping, but stopping at the end, stopping after I had finished in the way that I wanted to finish.
Yeah.
So I never once thought about quitting before I got to that pre-established endpoint that I wanted to get to.
Okay. So in your mind, it wasn't an option that you weren't going to finish this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's always something could happen. I could be hit by a car or something, and or I could injure myself, and badly enough that I wouldn't be able to continue. But as long as I was physically, healthy, I wasn't going to stop, and however long it took me to get across, that's how long it was going to take.
What was your favorite part of that entire journey, the entire 6 months of doing it?
Um, Besides the end, that's always kind of nice. I mean, my favorite part was probably all the supporters I had. I mean, I would roll into all these towns across the country, and they would welcome me in. They'd line their kids up along the road and wave at me as I went by, and I would go in and talk to people, and they would have receptions for me and that kind of thing. So
Cool, yeah.
that was kind of my favorite thing. But then in terms of scenery, my ride through Utah desert was definitely up there because we also kind of hit some really nice weather during that time too.
I know. How many states? Do you remember how many states exactly you crossed? There's got to be a ton.
Um, Good question. I don't know. I mean, I went down the coast from Maine to Virginia and then across to San Francisco and then down to Camp Pendleton. So could probably calculate it out, but
Maybe like 20
I
or
don't
so.
remember.
Yeah, there's got to be a ton. I mean, I'm just thinking too of all the scenery, the beautiful states, and
Oh
countryside
yeah,
and all that stuff you got to see. It's pretty cool. Not too many
yeah,
people get
definitely.
that.
Everywhere has its own unique kind of geography.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so you end up going on to shortly after that. I believe you go to the marathon thing. What 31? What made you want to do that, and how was that the experience of doing that? Was it tough? Was it easier than say biking across the country, or just as hard?
It was so I thought of the month. It was just kind of the next logical step for me. I wanted to continue to raise money and raise awareness about veterans, and I relearned how to run when I was in therapy, and I enjoyed running. And so, I didn't want to do another bike thing because I kind of had already done something with a bike. So I decided to run this time. And I knew marathons were difficult, and people saw them as difficult. A lot of people see a marathon as a bucket list item, and just to run one over the course of their lifetime. And so, what I was trying to do with the bike ride and with the month of marathons was create a story about a veteran that went overseas and experienced trauma and came back and actually became better from it. And I wanted people to see just how strong a veteran can be after experiencing a trauma like that. And so I wanted to pick this challenge that a lot of people would see as impossible, that kind of blew their minds when they heard what it was. And a lot of people, when I told them I would do it, they're like, is that even survivable? Aren't you going to die if you do that? And so I kind of hit that right on the nail, right on the head. And so that was kind of the purpose behind. That's why I picked the marathons, because it's a well-known distance, it's a well-known thing. A marathon. It's a big deal. So that's kind of how I picked marathons. And I forget the second part of your question because I rambled on.
I believe there was a couple of things I asked, but was it more challenging then physically and mentally
Yeah,
than going across the country?
in a way, the day-to-day was probably more difficult on the month marathons because, um, yeah, I mean, the running puts a lot of pressure on your stump and on your hips and on your back. Um, and so yeah, I'd say the day to day was definitely more difficult, but it only lasted 1 month. So the bike ride across the country lasted 6 months. So it was definitely a lot longer on the bike ride, so that added a mental challenge on there to be doing the same exact thing every single day for 181 days, whereas the month of marathons I only had to do the same thing every day for 31 days.
Yeah. But it does seem insane that you were able to do so many marathons because, like, I know people train year round to do like one marathon a year and they're pumped. And rightfully so. Marathon in itself is very impressive. How
Yeah.
did, how did you just continually for 1 month straight, like keep doing one marathon after another, after like, how do you mentally do that? And then physically, how did you even like prepare for something like that?
Yeah, part of it's knowing that it's possible. So I knew I had heard of people doing things like running the entire Appalachian Trail in 70 days or 40 days or whatever it is. So I kind of came into it with an attitude that it was going to be possible. Um, and then I think, you know, from that, if I thought that running one marathon a year was all that was possible for me, then yeah, running one marathon a year is all I'm going to do. So I kind of came into it with an attitude that it was possible because I heard all these stories before. And then the training, yeah, I trained for a year and a half, and that was on top of being an athlete for 5 or 6 years prior to that, 2017 and 2011. Yeah, so about 6 years I'd been an athlete, and I trained for a month and a half, and started slow and progressed gradually, slowly kind of built up the training pressure, and until a year and a half later I was ready to go.
Is there anything that you can't do physically now or since your injury that you used to be able to do before?
Um, in a way, yeah, there's a lot of I mean, there's a lot of the small things. Like I can't really jump at all because I don't have the knees, so I don't have anything to extend with that. So if I'm wearing walking legs, the only thing I can really do in terms of jumping is I can bounce on my running prostheses.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of, I guess that kind of counts as a jump. So I can kind of do jump rope barely with my running prostheses on. But yeah, it's really hard for me to transfer a lot of the power that I have standing up. Like I can't really throw things like big things. If I had, because I can't bounce, it kind of throws me off. So I can't really transfer that, the musculature, the power that I have in my upper body
Like a football?
into these objects. Yeah, like a football is kind of, I can do it, but I can't throw it nearly as far as I would if I could, if I could be connected to the ground solidly, or if I wanted to throw a hay bale or throw a medicine ball or something like that, or a baseball really high in the air. Like I can't look up and throw, and then the follow through would throw me off balance. So a lot of that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Just little things.
Yeah. So, like, overall, there's no big things that you can't do, but it's the little things, like the fine details here and there that you kind of.
Yeah, like big activities like lifting weights, I can do that. Running, I can do that. Riding a bike, I can do that. Rowing, surfing, or whatever it may be. I could figure out a way that I can do it in some fashion. But yeah, there's certainly subcategories within those things that I can't really do. Like I can't really run on a trail, up through the mountains. Like if I can't really run on the Appalachian Trail because my prosthetics just don't really work like that. And so yeah, there's subsects within all these activities I can't really do stuff, but the overall activity I can do.
Gotcha. Do you ever get down from time to time because you miss something, like you can't throw a football as good as before, or a hay bale, or maybe run through the woods like you might have done before? Are there ever like periods of time where you get a little down thinking about that stuff?
I don't really get down. I recognize that it's a little bit frustrating, and I recognize that it's an added challenge. Like I was trying to throw these wire things into my barn a couple days ago, and I wasn't able to throw them high enough because I couldn't, like, for the reason I already told you. And so yeah, and then when that kind of thing happens, it's frustrating because you have to go through this whole other process of either getting somebody to help you, or having to go get my tractor out and use that thing to load it up there, and when it'd just be so much easier if I could just get in the back of my truck and throw them up there.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's things like that are frustrating, but I don't really get down about it because it's not really going to help me get it done.
Yeah. What are you doing, like, in those moments just to get past it? Are you just thinking about the good that you can do, like all the positive things that you're still able to do, or is it something like a little bit different?
Yeah, that helps, falling back on that kind of thing. But it's just thinking about the objective. If I want to get these little wire things into my barn, and it's not working when I throw them, okay, well, I'm just going to have to go do it some other way. And the objective is to get those things into my barn. And so that's just what I stay focused on. And so I don't focus on the fact that I can't do it this way. I focus on, the way that I need to be able to do it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I like that perspective too.
Yeah.
You mentioned before, which I thought was probably one of the most interesting things I took from this interview, but you feel like you're better than before, even before the injury. In what ways do you feel better than before, and how has it changed the way you look at life?
Yeah, those are some big questions. I could probably talk to you about that for another 2 hours. Um, it is just, it's more of a mental, it's more of but just life being kind of better. So I'm certainly more resilient mentally, and I've learned a lot of lessons mentally that I may not have learned otherwise. I love my life now. I because of this injury, I had the opportunity to go to the Paralympics and meet my wife, and marry her. So I mean, my life is better that way. I live in a fantastic house that wouldn't have been possible because if I didn't have my injuries, because I got this house from a veteran charity. And so it's kind of in ways like that. And I have this incredibly meaningful purpose in life that came about because I was injured in the way that I was. And I'm able to create this story and be a positive example for people. And so that's I'm better in that way.
Mm. Yeah.
I wouldn't say I'm stronger or faster or anything like that physically, but I'm definitely stronger and better mentally because I've had to face these challenges and overcome them. And so, I'm definitely better and stronger from a mental perspective.
Love it, man. That is such an awesome message. What are you up to right now, Rob? Before we wrap things up in a moment, I know you're running for, I believe, Congress in 2020. What's that like? What's that process? And what are you hoping to do?
Yeah, it's another challenging process. I'm running for the House of Representatives in the 10th District of Virginia, which is in Northern Virginia. And what I'm trying to do is continue this, what I've already started, and that's helping as many people as I can over the course of my lifetime. And I think the way for me to do that now is to restore trust and confidence in people's elected officials. And so I want to do that for the people at the place where I grew up. And so I think one of the problems that we have in life now in the government is that very few people trust the people that are representing them in government. And so I think the first step to getting back to a place where people feel optimistic about our future and optimistic about the American dream that they're trying to live out is, believing in the person that represents them, in the federal government. And so that's my main purpose.
Yeah, I can't think of anyone better to elect than someone like you, man. Seriously, after all the things you've done and all the incredible things you're doing right now, it's very impressive.
Now, if only I could transfer that attitude to the other 800,000 people in this district.
How are the polls looking for you right now?
We haven't really done any polling, to be honest.
Okay.
It's way too early. Right now, we're focusing on fundraising so that the 800,000 people in this district know who I am and know what I'm all about and know that what my purpose is for running. Mm-hmm. And that takes a lot of money. That takes TV ads, that takes radio stuff, that takes social media ads, and and that kind of thing. And that's just kind of an unfortunate aspect of running for office, is that the way that people get their information is through media, and so and media costs money, and so you have to focus a lot of your time on fundraising, and then getting out there and meeting people, finding out what the issues are that are affecting them, so that you can start to develop your legislation or your stuff that you want to work on when you get into office. So getting out there and learning and meeting the people of the district, and then at the same time, right now we are going to have a convention to decide who the Republican nominee is for this district. And so part of that is, again, meeting people and trying to gather people that will vote for you in this convention called delegates. And so we're kind of working on those three things right now.
Cool. Do you have any worries about, you are a Republican, do you have any worries about people turning on you at some point? And, when you get into politics, it's a messy game,
Yeah.
and like you said, there's a lot of distrust in politicians. And, I think people like you are great for getting in there and changing it up, so we actually do change perspective on our politicians and have more faith and trust in them. But do you have any worries or hesitations, or did you have hesitations about jumping in and becoming a politician? Because once you do, you kind of cross that barrier of you get a lot of shit thrown at you, you get a lot of negative people attacking you, you get a lot of people who say are a Democrat, just because they're a Democrat, they're not going to like you and not going to want to vote for you. Did you have any hesitations about getting in there because of those things?
Yeah, that's definitely something that I struggle with, is that I'm used to being the guy that's the underdog, and people are rooting for him. Everybody is rooting for me because they want to see me succeed. And so I have to get used to the fact that there's going to be, at least 30% of the population that are actively rooting against me, that don't want to see me succeed because, they just don't agree with what I believe. And so, yeah, and that's a tough transition. Because I like it when people like me. Yeah. Everybody likes it when people like them, But I can't let that stop me. And I have to say that even the people that disagree with me, for the most part, even they're kind of giving me the benefit of the doubt. Like, I've had people comment on stuff saying, thank you for your service, you're a hero, but I just can't vote for you. And so, and that's refreshing. So I think we're starting to see this kind of, with me, we see a turn where people are being more civil to me because they recognize that I'm a good person, and they recognize that I'm somebody that they could probably believe in, but they just stand in a different place on me on the issues, or a political party, or whatever it may be. So they say they can't vote for me, but they acknowledge that I'm a good person. That's kind of the first thing that we need to do in order to kind of cure this divide. We need to see each other as human beings and see each other as, a person, and then kind of go from there, and then, disagree respectfully.
Yeah, I could not agree more, man. It's just, it's tough to see people just because they have an opinion, or they have a side, a position they take politically, or, even religiously. Like, there's so many different things that, rub people the wrong way, or it's a sensitive topic or a sensitive subject. And I am of the belief that everyone has the right to their own opinion, and I will respect that person no matter what, because it's their opinion. I'm not going to dislike somebody because they, voted for a different guy than me, or they chose a different political side than me, or, they have a different religion. Just, to me, that seems completely nuts, and I truly respect you for saying that and coming out and actually, I hope more people on the left and right, Democrat and Republican, can come together to a more peaceful side and, agree to disagree in different points and different aspects, because I think we all benefit individually and as a country when we can agree to disagree and just amicably, debate, instead of just throwing shit at the wall and attacking each other like, it's been going on for the past few years.
Yeah, I think we're on the way. We kind of swayed one direction, and I think we're on our way back. A lot more people are realizing that we need to be civil to each other again. There's a piece written by General Mattis in the Atlantic that you should check out, because it's a very poignant opinion piece that says just that, and then says the reasons why. So you probably enjoy that.
All right, Rob, man, I really appreciate you coming on, and I know our guys are gonna love this one. I loved it. It just true honor talking to you, and I really appreciate all your service and all the things you've done for this country. What is a last send-off takeaway message you'd like to leave our Elite Man audience, and then a place our listeners can check out your work and what you're up to?
Yeah, sure. I just leave everybody with the key to overcoming anything in life and accomplishing anything in life is having a selfless purpose for doing it. That's number one, and that's the main lesson that I've learned. And then when you need help, you get the help that you need. You put that team around you to help you get across the finish line. And yeah, if people want to follow along with what I'm doing now, we can go to robjonesforcongress.com, and then all my social media is there for the congressional campaign. And hey, if you guys want to see this kind of attitude that I've told you about in Congress, then please go to my website and make a donation or sign up to volunteer for us. Every dollar helps. Every single dollar, every single donation, whether it's $1, $5, is going to help us. And so go ahead and do it now. Don't forget. And yeah, that's about it. RobJonesForCongress.com.
Thanks so much for coming on, man. Really do appreciate it. And I know our guys are going to love this one. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, man.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that episode. But before you go, there's one last thing I'd like you to do, and that's this. Subscribe to our podcast right now if you haven't already. By subscribing to the podcast, you get every single episode the minute they're released. Get all of our Elite Man podcast episodes and all of our world-class advice absolutely free. Subscribe now if you haven't already and become an Elite Man today. And yes, if you do love the podcast, leave us an amazing review. We really do appreciate it.